Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Pieces of Impact podcast. My name is Steve Seeger, and I am the host here, and I am very excited today to dig in here on another four topics that I found interesting. I'll jump right in here. I'm really excited about this episode today. I do have some guests in the pipeline for interview style episodes, which I prefer to do more going forward. And I wanted to give you an update there. And again, just for anyone that's new, I typically share four things that I found impactful or interesting this week and try to do so in a concise manner and hopefully give you back some value in listening to these episodes. So without further ado, we'll jump in to idea number one here that I got down in my notes. And this is something that I've talked about before, but it's the idea of creative desperation. And my mentor kind of introduced me to this idea. And it stuck with me. He said that desperation unlocks reserves of creativity and effort that you can't access otherwise. And the more experience I get, the more I realize how true that actually is. And when your back's against the wall, you don't have the time to overthink or try to chase perfection or optimize what you're doing as much as possible. The only choice that you have in that situation is to just move and act. And in that moment, there's just this weird clarity that kind of shows up. It's like a resourcefulness and focus that the comfort you normally will have can't really seem to replicate. The nuance, I guess, there point out is that living in that state all the time, I think, is a recipe for burnout. And I don't think it's sustainable to do that 24/7. So I think that the real skill and the one that's hard to develop is learning how to tap into that creative desperation without needing an actual crisis or a deadline that's public. There are ways that you can create it artificially. And I mean, I just mentioned a couple, but you can set a hard deadline. You can make a commitment that you can't back out of, whether it's a project, something you're working on. You can do it by making it public so others can expect something from you, which would in turn make you more accountable to that. Those little things, I think, kind of create a controlled sense of urgency, and it's the same urgency that you feel when everything's on the line, but I think without the emotional chaos of true desperation. And I think it's very easy to say that this is something that you can develop and practice and learn how to do, but I think it's very difficult actually to do this artificially. Again, too much comfort, you kind of drift along, but too much desperation, I think there's the possibility that you break. And I think if you can find that middle zone, kind of right where it's a controlled tension, that is where your best ideas and productivity is going to come from. Um, you can't fake sometimes the raw emotion of a crisis when your back is against the wall, but you can build, I guess, the systems to borrow the energy from one. And when you do that and you learn how to flip that switch on intentionally, I think you'll create some pretty cool stuff without waiting for life just to hit you with something really difficult. So yeah, that's a cool idea. And our first one there, we're going to jump to the second thing that I found interesting this week, um, and this is related to AI, which I've tried to read and be as up to date on as possible, just with how quickly everything's moving these days. And one thing that grabbed my attention this week was how the work week could potentially change over the next several years as AI continues to advance. And we've been in this 5-day work week for about 100 years now. And Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, that's just what work is supposed to look like. And if you zoom out and you look at what's happening with AI, you're going to start to see the cracks that are forming in that idea and that framework. And we might actually be heading towards a different work week, maybe one where it's 4 days a week, for example. Um, I've put together a couple quotes, some data, some research here to kind of back this thought up, and I'm going to read off of some of them here. Ari Emanuel who used to run Endeavor, he told the Financial Times that he thinks the average work week could drop to 3 days because AI is speeding up so many everyday tasks. The CEO of Zoom, Eric Wan, basically asked the obvious question too. He said, if AI can make our lives better and take tasks off of our plate, why do we still need the 5-day work week? Um, I think it all kind of sounds abstract, and you wonder how legit this actually is. And I question it too. But when you look at the data from real companies that are implementing this, it gets a little more clear. So in the US today, only around 5% of employees actually are working a 4-day work week. So it's still rare, but overseas, they've been running experiments on this with shorter weeks. In the UK, this was a cool trial that I read about. In 2022, they had 61 companies that went to a 4-day work week, and they didn't do a pay cut or anything for the employees. And after 6 months, 92% of those companies chose to keep that shorter work week. And about a third of them made it a permanent change. Their revenue did not collapse. In fact, for the companies that reported their numbers, revenue went up actually slightly. It was incremental. I think it was like just over 1%, but the employees were happier. Resignations dropped by more than half, and about 71% of employees said they felt less burnt out. And there was a similar trial in Iceland that I read. The takeaway was that if you cut the hours, but the productivity stays the same or even improves, employees feel better and they stick around longer. So the 4-day work week, I don't think it's just a fantasy for a lot of employees. I think there's a real possibility that it could happen. I don't know how likely it is, but it's fun to think about. And the next question is a really fun one. Also a little scary too, if you think about it, but maybe we get to 3, and that might be a while. But the argument for an even shorter work week is pretty simple. And it's that if AI and automation keeps getting better and better, and I mean, it compounds how quickly the artificial intelligence is learning, you begin to wonder, say in our lifetime or in my lifetime, maybe it's 30 years down the road from now or something. Maybe we're down to 3 days a week. What do people do with those 2 days a week that remain? I mean, do we keep pretending that we're working, or do we actually redesign the work week to a shorter structure? And I think some CEOs think that we're getting there. Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of NVIDIA, said that AI is probably going to make 4-day work weeks the norm. I think that the big catch, though, is just because the technology allows it doesn't mean that every company is going to say, great, let's let our employees take another day off. And I think that some businesses will just use the AI to expect more output from the same number of days, while also potentially cutting the amount of jobs that they have, which I think you're seeing right now, instead of shortening the work week. I think this is probably more likely for now. There was a couple people are saying that a lot of these white collar jobs are just going to be completely eliminated or automated in the next 5 years. So I think if you aren't thinking about this right now, especially in your early career stages, you should be, because it's going to impact you one way or another. So what I also find interesting is that even without any official change to the work week, our behavior is already actually shifting. If you look at the data, remote and hybrid work, for example, have already shortened the real working day for a lot of people. There was a Gallup study that found in 2022 that people in jobs that can be done remotely were working about 1 less hour per day than they were in 2019, with no obvious drop in output. And when you look at certain groups like single remote workers, the drop was closer to 2 hours a day on average. And they're still getting their work done. They're just doing it more efficiently and using the extra time however they would see fit, I guess. But on top of that, was another stat that came from another survey that says that the average office worker is truly, really productive about 3 hours out of 8 per day, which is pretty scary if you think about it, especially if you're maybe a business owner. The rest of that time, they said, goes to meetings, emails, scrolling, or whatever other distractions there might be. And companies probably do see this. That's why you're hearing. At least I've seen some talk about core hours, where instead of expecting everyone to sit there from 9 to 5, they're saying, okay, we'll consolidate all of our meetings and anything that we need you here for maybe like 10 to 2 or 9 to 3 or somewhere where it's a little shorter. They'll stack everything in that window and then they'll let their employees flex around it. So there's people that are already kind of creating long weekends that are remote workers too. And they'll finish early on Friday and then they'll stretch their weekend out without formally changing anything. And there's actually data that backs that too. From a travel company standpoint, they're probably really excited about this. There was a UK in that UK 4-day pilot. They 52% of employees said they were using that extra day to travel more, and the travel industry is actually seeing an uptick in the amount of bookings on Thursday nights because a lot of people are able to work remotely on Friday, but they can do it from wherever they see fit. Obviously, the CEO of United, he talked about a permanent shift in leisure demand, which is driven directly by this hybrid work. But with more flexibility, any weekend can really turn into a holiday weekend now. People leave earlier in the week and they come back later. And the old Friday night to Sunday pattern is beginning to change. Even if it's a little right now, I do think it will continue to change slowly. But I guess with that additional free time, people aren't just going to sit around and do nothing. I think that in addition to travel, people are going to go to concerts, games. They're going to want to consume more, like movies and entertainment, more streaming content, more podcasts. And I think that's where it kind of ties back to another one of my takeaways, in that if people have more time and AI is making us more productive and they want to consume more, I think that the creator economy, there's a pretty meaningful opportunity there. And if you lean into that, you could position yourself well, because although AI is wonderful and there's a lot you can do there, I think at the end of the day, humans value genuine, authentic connection that maybe we're a while off from seeing in AI. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't think can replace you outright as a human. But there, throughout our lifetime, at least from my age group, you're going to see it continue to replace people who are maybe in roles that are more specialized, where they're doing 3 to 5 things very well, and AI can actually replace that. But if you're wearing multiple hats and you're able to critically think and do a ton of different things and you're actually providing value to an organization, it will be harder to replace you. So these are the kind of things that I like to point out, because I think someone in my age group in their 20s should be considering this as they're developing their career and advancing and moving along, because you want to try to see around corners, and this is coming. This is inevitable. So idea number 2 checked off the list. We'll look at idea number 3 now. And this is a little bit of a quicker one. It's an accountability trick that I heard on Andrew Huberman's podcast. I'll probably butcher the actual setup that he does, but I think he said he gives one of his assistants like $1,000 and says, if I come out of my lab before, I don't know, 6 o'clock, or I touch my cell phone while I should be in deep work mode, you can keep the money. Again, he probably set it up differently and I'm just describing it wrong, but the concept's the same. I struggle with calorie intake sometimes. Like, I just will eat a ton, especially from running a lot. I get hungry. And to hold myself accountable to a diet, sometimes I'll give my sister like $100 and I'll say, hey, I'm going to track my calories and I'm going to show you each day that I was under my number, or I didn't binge eat or something. It helped me. And obviously this might not work for everyone. It's just something that worked for me. So I thought it would be interesting to share, but it helped me from an accountability standpoint to know that I'm not going to let her down. Now, if you're going to eat over your limit and not tell the person that you're supposed to give the money to, then you got a bigger problem that you got to figure out first with honesty. I've broken on this and I've paid her up. I mean, it works though. I think it's a fun little trick, and got to be careful though. You don't want to develop a bad relationship with eating, which potentially I've done. I don't know. I don't always do this bet. This is just for every once in a while. But I will keep moving to idea number 4, which was from a podcast. It's the All In podcast, which I enjoy. I think the hosts on that are really smart guys, and they had an interview recently with the CEO of YouTube, Neil Mohan. And I wanted to share a few takeaways, because if you're a creator or you're even thinking about getting into the creator world, this stuff really matters. And I think you should be thinking about it and paying attention. So he said that YouTube still sees, and I'm looking off of some notes that I took down here, YouTube still sees massive room left to grow. And kind of to my point earlier about more time being opened up with AI and more entertainment needed, that makes a lot of sense to me. So he talked about how their YouTube shorts alone get over 70 billion views a day. That's crazy to me. And they said that the company has now paid creators over 70 billion in the last 3 years. And their mission is still really the same. It's to give everyone a voice and show them the world. And I think he genuinely views the creator economy is still being in its early stages. So again, opportunity for paying attention. What I loved is how open YouTube is being to different monetization models. He basically said that you can use whatever works for you. So some bigger creators sell their own ads because the 45% split that YouTube keeps isn't worth it to them. While maybe a smaller creator would rely on YouTube's built-in ad tools, and YouTube's okay with that. I mean, they want creators to choose their own business model and be entrepreneurs at heart. So ads, brand deals, memberships, revenue, whatever really fits for them, he said that they want to lean into. Another takeaway was that advertisers love YouTube because the viewers are so leaned into the content and loyal. So people that come to YouTube, they come to YouTube for specific creators that they're maybe super fans of or they're really loyal subscribers to. They don't just want to scroll. They want to sit and watch the same creator talk for a certain period of time, and an extended period of time. And that level of intentional engagement is why advertisers pay so much, because they see an ROI there. And I think it's why YouTube is able to pay their creators so much money. There was another part of the conversation that was pretty interesting around personalization versus shared culture. So on one hand, everyone's feed is totally individualized from the algorithm, but the CEO of YouTube pointed out that there are still massive cultural moments on YouTube. Things like sports streams where creators like Mr. Beast are integrated into a broadcast that everyone can watch at once. And he kind of sees that as the new water cooler moment where a lot of people are watching the same thing together just through a creator driven lens. And on the product side, they're doing some pretty neat stuff too. He was saying how they're pretty proud of YouTube TV, YouTube Premium, channel memberships. YouTube TV is becoming one of the go-tos for sports and news. Their YouTube Premium has 125 million subscribers. That was a pretty crazy number to me. Now, the YouTube TV stuff and just all the different subscription models are really a pain. I mean, I'm kind of getting sick of having to go to a bunch of different apps. I thought we got rid of cable to not have to do that, and whatever. I mean, I digress, but I don't know how much longer I'm sticking around with YouTube TV and other brands. If they're going to keep going up in price and whatever, but ads are still the engine at YouTube. And they're clearly diversifying ways that they pay their creators. So he did say that the pandemic era was interesting because YouTube is staying flexible to how they operate in so many different countries, and with there's just different laws and expectations from a lot of their different consumers and users. And their goal is to be an open platform, but one that's consistent with legal and advertiser realities. And sometimes they make mistakes, and he owned that. The really neat part, though, in the discussion was when they were talking around AI. And he said that YouTube will now label AI generated content with a clear AI generated on it. I don't go on YouTube enough to confirm this. So if someone that is a avid YouTube user can let me know, that'd be cool. But more importantly, they're building likeness detection tools. So they want to see it's like kind of like content ID. It's for your face or your voice, I guess. And if someone makes an AI clone of you, which I know a lot of us are really concerned about, seeing some of these AI videos get better, YouTube wants to give that person that was like that creator that potentially someone used their likeness for the ability to remove it or actually monetize it. So there's a lot of creators. Like, for example, I'm a big fan of Luke Nichols, who runs the Outdoor Boys channel. He talks about how during COVID, a lot of people on TikTok were just posting reused little clips of his reels from his YouTube videos. And he had no way of being monetized for that while those accounts were directly for his work. Now, that channeled a lot of viewership to him, and he probably did, in the end, make up for it. But it does make sense to me. I mean, if someone recreates your clip or uses your likeness, that you potentially have the opportunity to earn from it. Um, he did warn, the CEO of YouTube, Mohan, warned about AI slop too, just meaning like low effort, auto generated content and that clickbait stuff that you're kind of starting to see. And he said YouTube's working to continue the quality control stuff there and tightening it up. Because as he said in the interview, that trust is everything to them. With their viewers, because people will leave, they'll go to different platforms, and sometimes you see that. So the bottom line here is that YouTube's doubling down on their creators, and I think that they're investing in better monetization, more transparency. I think most importantly, most interestingly to me in this little bit of info here is that the AI tools that are protecting creators instead of replacing them are going to keep YouTube as probably the biggest streaming platform in the world, and I'm glad that they're doing that. So if you're a creator or someone interested in making videos, I think the next few years on YouTube are going to be very, very interesting. And is what he shared in this interview actually going to happen? I don't know. We will wait and see. But that wraps up this podcast episode. I hope that you found this discussion meaningful, impactful, interesting, and maybe even valuable. Now, as I did say at the beginning of the episode, I'm working to get some guests on here, and I've got a couple scheduled. So I'm looking forward to getting those out to you. But otherwise, I thank you for listening, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week.